challenge 4 done, but I started a new job and I'm in training all week. And I haven't had a computer.
Well, I'll show you guys what we want to look for challenge 4. Challenge 4, interesting enough for challenge 4, one of the other guys I have doing the challenges, he did his one way and I did mine the other way. And his is about 50% more efficient. He can get pretty much get his code to run within about 8 milliseconds.
Oh, nice.
Mine is taking 16 milliseconds. So now the challenge is on trying to figure out, okay, how do we optimize this? My code is a little dirty, wasn't? I'm trying to write it in 2 different ways. One using math and one using the string parser.
So are we working on 3 tonight to finish it up?
On 3.
And then you'll show us what we need to do for 4?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
I can show you my 3.
Well, I figured I'd probably see a few versions.
Well, the 4 is the easiest. So why? Okay, okay, I do have a question though on 3. Because I'm hard coding the 20 because I know there's 20 objects.
yeah, you shouldn't be hard coding 20. No hard codes. So one of the things that we want to stay away with is any hard-coded numbers, any magic values, unless you know specifically that is something you want to match.
Well, it's always 5 by 5 according to their NG repeat.
It is 5 by 5, but what if they change it to 6, 7? You know.
So I found a way to get it to isolate, but I can only get 5 at a time. I found the NG-repeat is on all 5 of the 5 by 5. But I can't get all of it because I don't know how.
We'll show you the code. But really, for the code in challenge 3, if you do a for loop, it should be 3 lines of code. If you do a while loop, it should be 5 lines of code for the whole entire thing. So we'll go through that. Did everybody finish challenge 2?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions or challenges? For those who didn't finish the solution, you didn't finish later.
I was a little bit confused still on the hard versus soft assert.
Okay.
And I wonder if I'm not sure if I used a hard assert, because that's what it said in the challenge, right? Use the hard assert.
Yeah, the hard assert is actually an insert. A soft assert, you can do a verify, or you can generate your own assertion. So whether you're checking for a value, or for a Boolean status, you can check for true, false. We won't do too much of the soft asserts in our exercises, but just keep in mind that a soft assert is great for a long running string. So if you have to go, let's say you have to go to 5 different pages for a shopping cart, right? Go to the product details page, add a product. You go to the cart page to verify your cart. You go to the checkout page to verify your payments, and then you could complete to submit an order, and then you get an order number. So the assertion would be, the hard assert would be on the order number. The soft asserts would be when I click add to cart, did that product get added to cart? If I go to the cart page, does that product I added, is that the correct product? And what is the price of that product right now? When I go to the checkout page, does my product still show up? And is the price still the same? And then when I go to complete the checkout, is my price still the same? And is this product still the same? And the quantity still the same, right? So you're adding more and more verifies onto your page as you're going through that checkout flow. The last thing you want to do is say, I want to add 1 bottle of water, and I end up with a 6-pack of Coke at the end, and I'm being charged 10 times more. So those are the things where you would use a soft assert as you're going through each of the pages, and then at the very end you do a hard assert right on your order number. So, but for what we did is just using the hard assert, and the next thing, the hard assert, difference between a hard assert and a soft assert, the hard assert, the second it becomes false, it will stop the rest of the script running. So if you're on the first page of your adding the product to cart, if you do a hard assert and it fails right there, it might have added to cart, but let's say you're in the cart page, your product actually changed, but your price is still the same. Okay? Or let's say your price changed, but your product is still the same. So anything that might be a variance there, you don't necessarily have to stop the script. You can continue with your script and complete the rest of the script, and then verify what actually failed. Is it because we didn't add the product to cart? Well, we added something to cart. So maybe the SKU was bad, or maybe the product name was bad from one page to another. We might be reading off two different data sources. So there's different ways to try to test multiple things at once. But that's the ultimate goal of doing a hard assert versus soft assert, is just don't create 1,000 test cases trying to verify one little thing, because that's going to take you probably 2 years to write all those test cases, maintain them, and then all of a sudden somebody changes one ID, you have 1,000 scripts to go modify. You want to have the least amount of scripts that test the most amount of things to give you the best result for an end-to-end. Most of us, if you listen to most people who talk about automation, you don't want to do it end-to-end, but most of the time we don't have that luxury. There's not automation that's built for the unit testing. There's not automation for the APIs. There's not automation for integration testing. There's no automation for functional testing. So we basically drive automation with functional UI and all the way from beginning to end. And that's the best coverage we can do, but we're going to go with it. So. All right, let's move on to challenge 3. So for those of you actually who haven't started challenge 3, or who are starting challenge 3, let's walk through this really quick. So if you haven't started challenge 3, let's go to your project folder. Let's go to your project folder, and if you right click on it, let's create a new folder. Let's call it challenge 3. I'm called mine challenge 3 because I have a challenge 3 folder. I'm going to do a challenge 3. Okay. And now open up your challenge 2 folder, because if you finish that, or if you haven't finished it, you can go to challenge 1 folder. It'll be pretty much identical. Challenge 2 folder, we're going to open it up, and we're going to copy this challenge2.js and this package.json.js. Okay, I have one extra file here on the git ignore. We'll talk about that a little bit later tonight. But let's copy the challenge2.js and the package.json.js. So if you hold down your control, you can click on those 2 files, and it'll copy just those 2 files. Okay, we'll do a copy. We'll go to the 3A, and we'll do a paste. And mine didn't copy the JSON.
I have a question about that, Matt. When you copy and paste the JSON file, I was looking through it and I noticed that the description is challenge 2.
Yes.
Do you need to change it for challenge 3?
You can change it if you want to, you just don't necessarily have to.
Okay.
And ideally, when you build out when you're writing the code, you actually build one package JSON for multiple groupings of code, because we want to be more isolated, so we just copy JSON.
Okay.
So if people don't have challenge 1 or 2 yet, Matt, is there like a quick start form?
If you look at, let's see, let me send this document out. This document right here, it's online, and to get a quick start guide, you can go through the beginning of the page. Okay. I'll post it to the Slack channel. So if you're on the Slack channel for the Autobots, send it very basic. What's that?
Yeah. Let's see, what's your name? You can join that by, if you click on channels and add, you can add yourself to the Autobots.
You can add yourself? Oh, nice.
Or one of us can add you, we just know your name.
I'll send it out to everybody tonight too.
It's turning green.
Green? No, but I have red. I don't know why, but I got red.
Yeah.
You know? It's very pretty. Look at all the groups. Visual Studio Code is so much more comprehensible.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whereas visuals with community, it's like, but I was kind of getting to the point where it was like I was starting to understand what it was trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Okay,
I use
does everybody get their package JSON and challenge 2 copied over? Okay. We're gonna go back to challenge 2. Let's rename this challenge 2, challenge 3. We're gonna rename some of these files, rename the file to challenge 3, just so we can keep everything straight. And just like an ASA said, we're gonna change the package JSON to challenge 3. So quite a few spots. And now we're going to right-click on the challenge 3 folder, and we're going to open that in terminal. And this is a little review from our last session. But right here, if you look in your package JSON for your challenge 3, it has all of our dependencies listed in there. Okay. The nice thing is, when you go to here, all you need to do is type in npm install, hit enter. And that will download all your dependencies and create a node modules folder. And the node modules folder will contain all the packages we're going to be using.
So if I just copied and pasted the files, that doesn't do it in the file structure. You need to install it all still.
You have to do an npm install, otherwise it's going to be missing all those node modules.
All right, so that would be if I cd into challenge 3, and that's where I do the install.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if you copy the node modules from challenge 2? Do you need to install from within? I mean, it's
No.
essentially the same question, but.
No, if you copy the node modules, you can just copy it down.
Okay.
It's not going to hurt you. It's just it needs reference to where those libraries are installed. So technically, if you wanted to, I can go back to this node modules folder here, right-click, and do a copy on that entire folder and paste it. Just make sure you copy everything and paste everything, because otherwise, I mean, if you look at how many folders there's a lot of it.
I just copied the whole node modules, copied it and pasted it.
But here's the other thing that is going to be interesting for everybody. If you just copy that node modules folder, you're going to use the exact same libraries that the previous project is using. If you notice your package JSON, there's a caret above some of these right here. What that is going to say is that I'm going to use anything in a higher version that's available. So if I do an npm install today versus what I did 2 weeks ago, we might have a new Chrome driver that's available. And a new Chrome driver that's available might work better with a new version of Chrome that just got released. So sometimes even when you're looking at your projects, if you go back to, let's say you go back to project 2 a month later and you try to run your package, all of a sudden it's starting to fail because it couldn't initialize your Chrome. Try to do an npm install and it will update all the Chrome driver dependencies. Okay, so now that this is installed, notice in challenge 3K, for the challenge 3 folder, we have a package JSON.lock and challenge3.js and node modules. Okay, this is the part that we're going to deviate a little bit. I want you guys to right-click on your challenge 3 and click new file. And we're going to call it .git ignore.
Right-click, new file,
Yep.
oh, the directory. I'm on the file itself. .git ignore.
Yep. So later on tonight, we're going to talk about how to check our code into Git. And we'll do a quick walkthrough with it. But we won't expect everybody to do it step by step. So the git ignore file, what it does is it tells you which files to ignore when I check it into GitHub.
That's what
All
it
the
does.
files.
Yeah, you don't want to check in all your files because I don't know how big this empty.
It's huge, it tells me every time.
Yeah. So So you want to check in as minimal amount of code as possible and let your project build the latest dependencies. And pull it down. Okay. Now in the git ignore, what we're going to do is we're going to say, I want to ignore a folder called node modules. Folder is just the file itself. Let's say I want to add a bunch of other files there. So let's say I want to ignore a JavaScript file. You put in challenge3.js. This will not check in your JavaScript, your code file. Okay, but we won't do that. But you can also do a .git file. And we'll go through that a little later, what the .git file is. You can also, if there's a secret file, let's say you have a secret.txt file that contains the username, passwords, or certain things we don't want, but secret.txt.
Do you have to do this in every folder, or could you do it at the root of all the folders?
You can, it depends on how you check in your project.
Okay.
So if you have a parent folder, it needs to be in the parent folder, and then the root in the child folders does not have to have it.
Okay.
But if you have a parent folder and then you have child folder, and each of the child folder is a new project, each project needs to
Then
have
has
it.
it, okay. So we're setting each of these folders up as its own project.
You can. Like I said, it depends. I'm giving you guys both options. I have mine set up both areas just in case, But also with this, if you do a git ignore, let's say you have a secret file in here that you want to ignore, but in another challenge you do have a secret.txt file that you don't mind checking in, then this will filter it out for you. All right, let's go to challenge 3. So this one here is where we left off from challenge 2. Okay, if you guys remember from challenge 2, we are going to elements. Okay, so challenge 2, what we did is go through and did a search. I think some people might have had a struggle with challenge 2 on the driver.waitUntil and the driver.buy. Okay.
Yeah,
so
that was interesting. I mean, you can just fill that top area, those first like 30 lines with all of those, defining. Is it correct to say that you're defining those things, like you're defining by that? Yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah, so make sure I didn't go over the dependencies too well last time, but just remember that if you get anything that says undefined, make sure you're importing your library correctly. And usually that means go to the top and figure out what library you need to import.
How would you import just all of it, just so you don't have to do that?
I haven't looked into it for Node.
Okay.
I've been doing automation in Java for years and years, and it's easier to just do a .star.
Yeah.
And that imports everything.
Right.
And then that way from there, you can just do what I want to from that library, then I can just do it. This one just basically gives you a shortcut to that.
Okay.
So if you didn't want to do an import.buy, when you do a buy down here,
You have
like
to
this,
do the WebDriver.
yeah, you'll just have to do a web.
Select the list of them.
And that will give you the same exact functionality. But like I said, most of us are lazy, and any library that we're going to be using more than once, we're going to add a variable to it.
Selenium is nothing more than a library, right?
Correct.
So if it's, is the Selenium for C# going to contain more of these words defined, more of these definitions than it is for JavaScript?
No.
Or, okay.
It's going to be pretty much identical. There might be a couple of functions that might be called something different.
Right.
I know one of the things that is different is the when you check for an element to be visible. Those are, it seems like the stuff that works in Java, some of it does not work in JavaScript. So you got to look at what libraries do work in the JavaScript.
Cool.
But the way that you call the code is still identical. Right? So hopefully for those of you guys who are working on challenge 2, you guys have these e, by, and until. Okay.
This might be a strange question, but how do you comment multiple lines with one key? I don't know how to do
With one key, so what you'll do is you'll put your cursor
Mhm.
where your first line is and highlight
Mhm.
where you want to.
Yep.
And just hit Control.
Uh-huh.
Or on the Mac, I think it's a
Command.
Command.
and then your backslash, whatever,
Okay.
whatever your question mark is.
Awesome, thank you.
And if you want to do uncomment, it's the exact same thing.
Right, okay.
And one thing that, the other thing you can do is if you want to tab over, if you have multiple lines to tab over, if you hit a tab, it tabs it over. If you do a shift tab, it tabs it back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So for this challenge here, we're not going to go look for the server-side table. Look at challenge 3 on the documentation. We're going to be writing our own loops. Okay, and our output for this page is going to look like Impreza, Copart, Popular Models, URL. Okay. What we're looking at for this challenge is we're going to try to suck in all the data from this part right here, this section. I kind of wonder, well, why do we need to do that? Because I can write a test case that will go to each of these links one at a time. I don't want you guys to do that. I want you guys to identify all these elements with a few lines of code, and then and we'll give you the reason why we're in challenge 4. Because one of the big reasons is we want reusable code. So how do you go about grabbing all the data off of this section here?
Gotta find it.
We got to find the section. So what do? Easiest thing to do is go to the page and say, well, really the data that I'm looking for is this first link called Impreza, or is this first link called Jetta. Or right click on this Impreza, and we're going to do inspect. That gives me roughly where I'm going to be looking at. So what I'm going to be doing is we're going to pull this URL off the page, and we're going to pull this text off the page, and then we're going to print it out, kind of like what we did here. Okay, that's what your output's going to look like. So what do? Well, we used find elements, or find element, sorry. Find element will find one element on the page, and that's all you get back. There's another function in WebDriver called find elements, which will return you an array of elements. So anything that matches a certain pattern will get returned into that array. Questions? Okay. So how do I identify how to grab all these? We're going to look for patterns. We're going to look for patterns, but we know everything falls according to this page, everything falls under this ULLI. So we have an unordered list and then a list item. And then in here, we're going to have an anchor tag. And it's pretty much the same with all these ng repeats, and so on and so forth. Okay? But back to Angel's concern, there's 4 different columns right here. How do you get past this 4 different columns and have one line of code that references it?
Well, each LI is referenced by ng-repeat equals blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And that is only for those 4 LIs.
Let's do something easier.
Okay.
Okay, this is going to be awesome. Okay, so let's do Control F. And Control F in your Elements tab. If you do Control F, that will open up your I guess you can call this a DOM evaluator. Okay. And if you ever question, well, am I doing this right? You can say, well, I want to inspect this element here, and it'll find that element. And if you look through it here,
Ooh, that's the XPath.
yeah, when you start hovering over this, this gives you the CSS selectors.
You hit to get that control up.
You have to open up your inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
So right click and, oh, you got it open. And go to your Elements tab and do a Control F in that section.
Right. So just control F?
Yep.
On the Mac, it's the same thing?
Command.
Okay, thanks.
Why you people with Macs?
Don't be a hater.
Okay, I'm not seeing that.
I just don't.
Oh, it's here.
I just don't know all the fancy keys.
I gotta make it bigger.
Okay, so we're gonna look at this one and say, well, what, and I know right here, where we have a tab trending, it's gonna highlight this whole entire section. And I know this div is pretty close to where I want. So I can click on that div, and it's gonna go up to that div that contains that whole entire section of data. And amazingly, it says, oh, popular searches. That gives me all the data in here if I wanted to. Okay, but we're going to try to find an ID. So we're going to go up one more section right here. And the reason why I want to do this section here is what if I want to verify all the categories too? It looks the same on the page. It doesn't look like it's that big of a variation between what the top section is doing versus what the bottom section is doing. So rather than only verifying one section, let's verify both sections. Why not, right?
Wait a minute, say that again?
So rather than just verifying this top section right here, so
The
rather
top
than-
as in makes and models is what you're talking about, that section?
yeah, so so the challenge is to just verify this section of the URL, but we're gonna go take it one step further. Let's verify all this stuff. Why not? We're here already. Let's verify everything. Let's print out all the URLs. Once you grab the URLs, guess what? You can build yourself a little crawler and verify every page. That is challenge, I think that's challenge 7, where we're going to go through the same exact challenge here, but we're going to go to each of these pages and verify that the page loads up correctly. And we'll add a few more verifications.
So we hit div tab trending then.
Yeah. So how do we find that div tab? The nice thing with this control F, if you do, let's do a / and let's do A. What the / A will do is going to find every anchor tag on this page. And once it finds every anchor tag, you can see how many references it has. 351 links. So if you want to build a web crawler and you want to have to manually test this web page, I can guarantee you it'll take you probably most of the morning to verify 351 pages and make sure that those pages or whatever references they go to are working correctly. That's just one page you verified. You haven't verified the rest of the site yet. So that's why we would build web crawlers. We'll get to that in the future, but just keep in mind that what we want to do is try to identify as many objects as possible. So let's go back to our example here. And we're going to go to this tab trending. Okay, so how do we find this tab trending? Well, I know it's a div, so I'm typing in div. I found 557. Well, that's not very helpful because that's too much. So we're going to do an XPath. Okay? XPath always starts with an open square bracket and then @ This @ the nice thing with this @ is you can put whatever you want to in it. You can put ng-if. Okay? And you can close bracket. It'll find you 8. So there's 8 divs with an @ngf or ngif. Well, that's helpful for us. That's not what we're looking for. We're going to look for an ID. So now on this page, we have 72 references with a div with an ID in it. Okay, we're going to drill down a little more deeper. We're going to put equals right here, and this one's going to be the ID that's trying to match up. Earlier we said it was called tab trending, and close out that variable. So now I found 1. Okay. Now we can grab all that data on this page here. Okay, this whole entire 2 sections. But what if I don't want to grab that right now? Okay, how do I drill down deeper into grabbing the anchors? You can do a /div. I will drill down some more. /div. And if you want to go to this, notice the first div right here is only highlighting the makes and models. That's not the part that I want. So So an XPath, you can say, I want to go to the first div. No, how about the second? The second div contains what I want. And then let's do a UL, I think. No, it's another div. So that's the first column now. And then we're going to do a UL. That gets down to the unordered list. We're going to do LI. And the LI returns 20 items in the list. So we're getting closer. We can do a /A.
And that returns 40.
That returns 20 depending on which ID you went to.
You go to the second ID, I think it returns 20.
So if you go to,
Okay, so my path is wrong.
so remember there's 20 in this first section right here.
But that's a literal path, and you said it was bad to use literals.
Yeah, this is where people get stuck up on. Most people will end up maintaining these XPath to the point where it's going to be maintenance nightmare.
Right.
It is huge. So what do we do? What's the solution? Guess what? You can do relative. So notice this first relative. The // does a relative. The next // does another relative within the child DOM. We can do a /A. If we do a /anchor, it's going to find 40 elements right there.
Right.
If we want to do, let's isolate it just to the top section. Let's do //li /A. That, oops, /div /A. Still fine.
I found it with /li/a.
For me, it was /ul/li/a.
Okay. So, like I said, play around with these different patterns, but this is going to be how you're going to identify what you're searching for.
Right.
If you ever wonder why your XPath is broken, copy and paste that XPath right into right here and see what you get. If you're expecting a bunch of elements, or if you're expecting at least one element and it shows 0 right here, you didn't find it. If I fat finger this ID, it's going to find 0. I'm like, no, I know it works. I know it does. Okay? Here's another classic example. Forgetting to close out your
brackets.
Most people, and I still make the same mistake. I'll write the XPath. All of a sudden it doesn't work. I'm like, what the crap is going on? Do Control F. Like, yep, code can't lie to me. It's not lying. Forgot that. Or you forget to put in your quote, or you put in a double quote. Remember, you have to match up the quotes. Do single or double. So now that we have this,
Where do you see how many that it came back with? Because
it's right here next to your search.
oh, okay, thank you. All right, yeah, so yeah, I have the same thing.
Yep. So that's the easiest way to use this XPath. There's other strategies to using XPath, but I think too many people start using CSS selectors, and the CSS selectors, you're diving too deep into it. And there's other strategies. If you end up using CSS selectors, I found a cool way this week. You can do a // /deep, or is it just /deep? I should have wrote down the documentation for it. I'll figure it out. But this /deep is pretty cool to use. I didn't realize it existed. If you want to end up using CSS selectors. Okay, so we're going to take that XPath that we had and we're going to paste it into our challenge 3. So we're going to say, we'll comment out. Actually, we'll just reuse this function right here. What we're going to do is name it. I'll name this loop through popular section and print link according to our last time when section in challenge 2, it looks like we did a search, so we don't need this function anymore. We don't need that step of the test. And where we know, right, based on this page right here, we are already at the Copart site that we want to be. Okay, so we're going to do, let's just delete all this stuff. We don't need it. Okay, what do we do first?
Create the elements variable.
Create the elements variable. Okay, but is it going to be an array? What is it?
Array.
Array. So one thing with Java is you have to, there's different patterns to building an array. In JavaScript, there really is no pattern when you declare your variable. So to keep it simple, keep your mind straight, let's do var. We're going to do popular underscore array. That way we know it's an array. So that way we know it's a popular item. It's going to look for the array. Now we're going to do a driver dot find elements.
Does find elements need to be put up in the top where the global variables are, where the dictionaries are? Is that what it's called?
No, what we did is we did the WebDriver up here for your declaration.
Yeah.
And then for the whole entire function, we did declare a global variable called var driver. And this is the driver that we're going to pass from one function to the next function to the next function.
I was talking about find elements versus find element, but I think you answered my question.
So we don't need to use the await?
We'll get to that. You're jumping ahead.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to do a driver.find elements. Now we're going to look for a locator. Now, for those of you guys who have imported the by library, you can do a by, or otherwise you can do a WebDriver dot find elements. Oops, not by find elements. By hecdot. And then we're going to open up another bracket here. And we know it's going to be XPath, so we're going to put a double quote. It's going to be a string. Right, pass the string into your XPath. Do a / div, or if you were smart like most people, you would have kept this and
Div bracket at ID equals tab trending.
This shows you how good you are at keeping find this. /
Double slash.
/ look at that. / Basic forget. Oh, and we'll just paste it in here. Boom. And we'll do, okay.
Are we going to do a for or a while?
We'll get to the differences between a for and a while later. So how do you know that this piece of code actually worked or did something?
Does it have any red on it?
Well,
Yeah, I see that. But, I mean, we're not at a point where we can do a test. Well, we kind of are. We've kind of got that assertion.
you can actually do a test right here, but
Yeah.
right here it just says contains Porsche. We're not going to use that. That's from the previous one.
Right.
We'll just leave that in there. It's going to fail. But if it's going to fail, how do we verify that we found something? Because right now we're expecting 40 elements, right?
I don't know.
Yep. Let's do print. JavaScript's going to be console.log. And where are we going to be printing? Popular array. What is that going to print out?
It's going to print out the object.
Got the object. Let's see what it does. Mocha challenge 3.js. Pop open the browser, go to copart.com.
Wow, yours is way faster than mine was. HTML is not referenced.
Yeah.
HTML is still in there somewhere.
That's because return is trying to verify something.
Yep.
It doesn't exist. But it's okay. We don't need to do it.
What was the command? It was Mocha dot.
Mocha space and then your challenge3.js.
Thanks.
I deleted that return so I didn't get that error every time.
You can delete this term if you want to comment it out. You can comment it out. Okay, so if you look right here, look, it says promise pending. What the crap is a promise pending? That is not the data I'm expecting.
Nope.
Okay, remember JavaScript is completely asynchronous. You have to tell it to wait. What it's doing right here is it's like, well, I'm going to print out the promise and I'm not going to wait for anything else. But we're waiting for the data to come back to us first. So once we get the data, then we can do something. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a wait. And let's run it again. Go to the page. Boom. Dang. Now it's returning a bunch of other garbage data.
It's the object. No, it's the entire object that he just printed out.
Yep. But this is an array of references.
Yep.
Is this useful to us?
No. No.
What do we need to do? We got to drill down into the array. Okay. Notice right here we have web element, web element, web element. Okay. So you know you have some type of element right here.
Yep.
Well, I still want to see how many times.
You could do a count.
Count?
I mean, or length.
Length.
Sorry. I was thinking SQL. Sorry, count was SQL.
Yeah, so now if you do array length, that tells you the whole entire size of the array that's there. Voila, I got 40. Okay, so we got the first part written correctly. Okay. Now let's write our for loop, because now we're going to go through all these elements and pull out our URL and our text. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do what's the difference between a for loop and a while loop?
A for loop goes through iterations of the array based on the formula that you give it, like how long you want it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And a while loop does things while a condition is true or false.
Correct. The other thing that you can't do with a for loop, you can't validate string. So you can't say, does this condition, does the name Matt equal Matt yet? Or does does this string contain the word value in it? You have to, for a for loop, it's numeric, from 0 to X number of times. And a while loop, you can set a condition, say whenever I'm going to set my status to false, and then whenever I meet a certain condition, I'm going to set that status to true, and then it's going to bail out that loop. Okay, so for a for loop, it's going to be for pattern. And we'll go through what it's going to go into here in a second. And for a while loop, looks almost identical. For a for loop, we have to instantiate what our counter is going to be. Where's our counter going to be starting at? Remember, one thing with arrays is that arrays start to count at 0 and not at 1. So we're going to say, well, we're going to do a var I equals 0. Okay. Semicolon. And then we're going to do a I less than. Do we do 40?
No, because you said not to do that.
Not to do that.
And we only want the first 20, so
What else returned us a number?
popular underscore array length,
Yeah.
but you said just to do the first 20.
You can do the first 20 if you want to do if you want to do a 40, you can do 40. Or you can change your XPath to isolate more down to that 20 block. Yeah. So you can do that. And if you look at my challenge 3 that I did the working example, XPath that I threw up in here. This one here I actually did popular searches. Popular searches /li/a.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
but because we are going one level higher,
Yep.
we're gonna grab 40. If we go one level within the popular searches, does your pattern at NGF with the attribute that we're targeting. So it just depends on where you want to target, but we're going to do 40 times. We're
Okay.
going to make it easier on us. Okay, I'm going to do a dot length. That's going to guarantee that we're going to go to that one less than the maximum, and then we're going to stop. Now we have to add a counter in here. We're going to do I++. And that's going to, after each end of the loop, what it's going to do is going to say I add one, add one, add one. For a while loop, if you want to do a while loop, you're going to have to declare your variable for where you bail out. If we're going to do a count, you're going to have to do var j equals 0. And in here, you can do while, oops, j is less than array.length. And within this loop here, if you don't put this j++, it's going to keep on running forever. Don't want that. If it does run forever, you can do a Control-Z, and that will break your function. I guess I'll be Command-Z on that. I'm getting it. Okay, so there's your for loop and your while loop. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to print out every line, every one of these items inside the array. So we're going to do a console.log. And if we want to do multiple console.logs, we can. But we'll just do one, and we're going to work with one element. Okay?
Why would we want to do multiple console down? Was that out of the scope of this challenge?
No, it's just a way for you to debug. I'm trying to configure my laptop so I can, in Java, if you use an IDE, you can actually put a breakpoint in here and you can do a debug. That way you can step through your code. But I haven't got my visual code working with Mocha. There's a couple of configurations I have to add. I haven't added it. So right now, the easiest way for me to debug on what's going on is do console.log. So for every step, I want to log out what I'm expecting.
Right.
So this one here, let's do popular array. Okay, so we're going to look at the popular array. How do you reference an array? How do you get one element out of the array?
Index.
Index. So anything with the index is going to be the square brackets. You can do 0, 1, 2, 3. But we want to do this. And so on and so forth. And say, I want to print out 4, 5, 6, 7. That efficient? No. We're going to simplify this because I don't want to have to, if I fat finger and all of a sudden this only goes to 100, then I got to do 100. And if this goes, and if all of a sudden it goes only down to 5 elements, then I got to go back and delete all this crap.
What would happen if you ran it with 100 in there?
It would throw an error
It would throw an error.
and say outside the boundary,
Yeah.
like outside the array, some error. It literally tells you you're
It's
outside.
actually outside. But we're going to do I, because we already know we have a counter right there. So now it's going to go through every object.
What does I mean?
It just means add one more to J each time.
Oh, okay.
Now we're going to index on whatever count we're on at right now. So we're going to, the first one's going to go 0, 1. The other thing you can do right here is if you want to see if your loop is going through, let's do this. If you want to see if your loop is actually working 40 times, or 39 times that we're expecting. We're going to do a console.log, and we're going to do a print of I. So pull all the info from the page, and we're going to go through, and voila, it did count up to 40 times. See right here, it started at 0. And now that we know the count is going to be working, we're going to go pull out everything inside the array. All right, let's run this code. We're going to see what's inside each element inside the array. I can guarantee you it's not the data we're looking for. You gotta get deeper.
It's each object within the object.
Yep. It's like, oh, I got one object. Oh, crap, that's not very useful. Okay, so we know this is a web element. So whether it's a web element of a singular web element or a multiple web element, you can do a .get text on it. Remember that the web element is just all this stuff right here. The get text is anything between tag, HTML tag, is going to be the text. So you can do a .get text, open, close. Want to do a print? Let's run the same thing again. Let's see what we get. Oh crap, it just says promise pending. That's not what we're looking for. What's going on here? What's wrong?
Well, it's
Stupid
not,
promise.
you have to tell it to wait.
Yeah. Remember, if you see a promise pending, had no wait. I can guarantee you, everybody who didn't read up on using that wait from challenge 2, that whole entire documentation on promises and wait, you will have this banging your head right now. I promise you pending. Because I did the same thing. I didn't read that document. I couldn't find that document. Yeah, I wrote the code and I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I found the document. That's why I included it. Okay, now we're going to do a print. Print to that. Oh snap! Look at that. It's printing on all 40.
Print that ish.
It's so pretty.
It is pretty.
I don't know, well, I needed the .get text is new.
Yep, the document.
So that's what we just added.
Await.
Oh, and the await before popular, yeah.
Bro, did you just miss that like 5-minute conversation we had about that?
You gotta say that.
You just put the await in right now. That's like.
Okay, now we're going to find the URL. We're going to find this URL. But one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize is that HTML page is an XML document. It is literally an XML. That's all it is. And for those of you who have studied XML, XML has your values, and then you also have attributes with values. So your values are in here, they're like the civic, and then your attributes would be anything within the tag. So when you say attribute, what can we do? We can get the attribute. Yeah. So get attribute, open, close. Is that going to solve what we need?
You have to get the link.
Let's just run this and see what happens. We're going to just run. The nice thing about coding, don't ever be afraid to add one line of code and see what it does. Add one line of code and see what it does. Gives you a lot of exercise. Crap, it says no. Didn't find anything.
Shiver like timbers.
Well, one thing for sure is we didn't tell it which attribute to find. So what we're going to say is, let's go find something. Anything within these two brackets it's going to find. So if you look at this page, the attribute that we're looking for, or for this element, is going to be the href. So put href in here. Now, what if it wasn't the href I wanted to find? What would be the attribute of, how do I get the attribute of nav tabs, tabs left in my code? What's the attribute value?
It's you, well.
Actually, what's the attribute name? Sorry.
Class.
Oh,
Class. Yep, class is the attribute name. What is the attribute value?
Nav tabs, tab class.
What if I want to go up to right here? If I do an attribute, get attribute ng-controller, what is my value going to be?
Home quick picks controller is the value.
Yep. So this get attributes will pull out everything in here. And so, well, when am I going to use that? You're going to use that a lot. You can verify CSS styling. You can verify CSS class that was supposed to be added to a certain div. It doesn't have to be just driving what is on your page. If you want to verify if a checkbox is clicked, you look at the attributes, it'll say check. So there's a bunch of attributes you can go in here. And nice thing is everything is key value pairs, so you always have to have an attribute name and an attribute value. This one here, we're going to do an attribute href. And voila. It prints it out. But remember, we have an await here. If you forgot to put the await, what's going to print out?
Promise pending.
Promise pending. Yes. You got to drill that into your brain. Hey, but this doesn't look like what we want to print out yet.
No.
It's good, but it's not clean. Let's simplify this. Let's reduce the complexity. Well, I know I don't need this I know which I am on already. We can do a console.log, and we can put in a space dash space.
Oh, that's how you did that.
And let's print that out again. That's what we get. Boom. Kind of worked.
That's not what the things that you do.
Exactly. It's not.
It's almost.
It's almost. Okay, so what do we need to do? We've got to concatenate all these values together. What's concatenation in JavaScript?
Plus?
Yeah, it's plus.
Java, do plus, we're going to do a dash.
Does it have a string format like C#?
It should. I'm sure it does.
You can do a string format, but that's learning beyond
Okay.
basics.
You're flexing those programming muscles. Oh, you mean this concatenation?
But this is how I concatenate.
So I didn't see you there, Matt. Just concatenating over here.
I was just saying, because I know C# I would use string format, so
So now we're going to concatenate it.
Dollar sign.
Python does the same.
I'm going to run it. And voila, it prints out. It prints out all the links and the names.
So you have only one console.log line.
Yep.
Okay.
Just one.
I do want to say something about that though.
Okay.
So when you have something do what it is you want the result to be, if there's a problem with that, it's harder to debug. Like if someone returns that instead of doing console log, returns all that stuff at the end, because it's already doing something with it, there's no way to reference it later.
Right.
So I always do the message and then just cross along the message. That way it's easier to debug.
You can do that. The other thing you can do here, if you don't want to do this and just print out the whole entire line, the other thing you can do here is we're going to declare a bar of text, and we're going to call it, it's just going to be an empty string. And here we're going to do a text equals
Yep.
text plus
Yeah, that's another way of doing it.
all that stuff. All that.
And then console log text.
So you do that.
It just makes it easier to debug if rather than trying to return it, because then you have to figure out how to do a breakpoint before the return, and there's nothing there normally.
So this works as well. But the thing about this one is that at the end, you're going to have to do another plus, and you're going to have to do a slash in for the line break.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because
Otherwise, it'll
otherwise,
just be like, it's a super.
giant long string. That's going to be useless.
What's that last bit?
Slash in.
Yeah, because what we'll do is it will create a new line for each, yeah.
Item.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of different strategies you guys can take to do this challenge. I'm not a stickler for following a certain pattern as long as it meets the requirements. Because really, most developers, they get a user story, and we have acceptance criteria. Once we have the acceptance criteria, that's pretty much it.
\n is not in quotes. Right.
Matt, could you show me what the very last line of your code looks like? Whatever's the last
So
line.
it's not up there anymore.
This one?
Yeah,
So we don't.
my code won't run when I don't have a semicolon, and then it won't run when I do have a semicolon. It's like I expect a semicolon there. It's
Oh,
like
you're
I
missing,
expect there to
you're
not be a
missing,
semicolon.
you're probably missing a parenthesis somewhere.
Yep, it has to be balanced.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look. Thanks.
So,
Okay.
no, so what you do is go to the error, the little squiggly line,
Yeah.
and see what it says. So hover your mouse over it so you can see what it says.
Now we're going to copy the same thing
Yeah,
into a while loop.
It's expecting another bracket somewhere, so you're missing a bracket in your stuff.
Thank you. That's awesome. I was gonna have to go to sleep with that.
Oh, no. Trust me, I learned how to figure out what the red squiggly lines meant.
Cool, that's awesome.
So this is the difference between your while and your for loop. The console log is going to be identical. The only difference is your for loop is literally 3 lines code. 1 line, 2 line, 3 lines. Your while loop, declare your counter variable or whatever you're going to try to break out. Your while, you print and your plus. So that pretty much finishes this challenge. The other part of this challenge that I wanted to show, we don't have to do this in the code challenge, because you met the code challenge. But let's say we do this other thing, try to find the XPath. We're going to go down to this ng-if popular searches. I'll show you another cool thing about XPath. Do ng-if equals searches. Okay, so popular searches, this time it found 20.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say we weren't lucky enough to have this tab trending ID. What do? How do we go to a sibling world? Think of this as a sibling or a grandparent.
Yeah, I don't know that.
We want to go to a grandparent. We want to go to a sibling. This is just like your family tree.
Sounds like XPath.
Yeah, we're going to use XPath. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this path here, and we're going to do it. Let's go and delete the /a. We're going to do a dot. Yep, and then we're going to do a dot. And we're going to do a dot. And notice that each dot that I put in there, it goes 1 up.
So it's just like change directory.
Exactly.
Okay.
Isn't that cool? So now when people say, well, the XPath, I have to use a fully qualified XPath. No, you do not. You find whatever is closest to it, find a sibling, find a child, find a parent, find an auntie, find your aunts and uncles, find whoever you need to. Once you find them, then you can go trace down the tree a lot easier. Then you can do the relative path down to that. So if you say, well, I found my uncle, I just need to figure out where his kid is, what his kid's name. And you do the / child, whatever the child is. You don't need to go through, well, my uncle has a child who has 2 kids who might be adopted. Then you can drill down into his grandkids if you want to. So the nice thing with XPath is it's just like you're traversing your folders on your file system.
Okay.
I haven't looked at all the links you provided us, but are any of those really, is one of those like a really awesome everything about XPath link?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's one that goes into all the details. You can do starts with, you can do begins with, you can do ends with, you can do dot contains. So you don't have to do this at. You can change this, say contains.
Right.
Right. Remember, this is all this is looking for. You can say anything that contains a call-lg-3 can be referenced.
There are 3 XPath links on the document, so you can get like from 3 different directions.
Cool. Yeah, just doing Google searches for XPath stuff, I get pretty lost.
Yeah,
really quick.
sure.
It's not as intuitive as finding CSS elements.
Yes,
Like they're that thing. I understand how that works.
Yeah, CSS is easy, but remember, CSS doesn't guarantee that you only have one element.
Right.
So if you're trying to isolate one element, somebody can add another CSS class to it, and all of a sudden you have 2 or 3. Which one do you use? So it makes it more confusing. And at that point, when you do a find elements, if you do a find element, it's going to return the first one. If you do a find elements, it's going to return 4 or 5. Then you have to drill down on those 4 or 5 elements to figure out which one you want to use. So it makes your code a lot more complex.
Yeah.
Trying to figure that out. But there's different strategies you can take. Over here, we're going to do a // and we're going to do a double slash again. We're going to do a /div. Well, it just went to the back to the popular searches. But if we do a /2, whoops, 1, still there, 2.
Before that.
About far enough? Probably not. Or we just went to the wrong.
We went down.
Yeah. Remember, it's going to look for the first one available. So all we did, if you do a / here, it's going to go up and right back down. Like a boomerang. If you do a / and I want to go to the second div, what did that find in here? So 1, 2. Oh, now we're getting down to categories. There's 3. So if we weren't given that popular or the tab trending ID, and you don't have a good way of navigating from that, and all you had was an ID to this section, you can still do a /div3 //a, and all of a sudden you find the next set of 20 URLs. So XPath is, if you do it right, it's very powerful and it's very flexible in what you want to do. I know a lot of people do love CSS selectors, but I am not a fan of it. But XPath I am, but it's a lot harder to use, and that's why most people don't like to use it.
Well, if you're starting, if you don't know how to automate, then maybe using CSS will get you something that'll run.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can get better at it.
Any questions?
No, that was great.
The other thing, if you guys get confused about doing XPath, you're like, I'm still not sure about typing this XPath in. There's another strategy. Let's say this is the div you want to look at. Click on it. Right click inside your elements tab. Go to copy and copy XPath.
I found that was pretty nice. Yeah.
Carlos tells me not to do that.
Yeah, why doesn't that work every time?
Carlos told me not to
You have to
do
be
that.
on something.
Do what?
Yeah.
Copy the XPath like that? Like you just
Like right here.
Okay.
Don't do it.
You can and cannot do that. It depends on what you want. If your XPath starts with /HTML/body/ whatever, don't use it. It's garbage.
But then you can use that to find those relative
Yeah.
paths.
But in this instance, notice that Chrome is actually smart enough to give you, look, there's a parent ID of tab trending, and it gave me a wildcard. And then it did, and went to the first div.
Wait, that's what it gave you? When you
That's what
copied
it
it?
gave me.
Nice. So that's actually pretty useful.
Yes, exactly. So it's not necessarily don't use it with caution.
What's the indication it's garbage then?
If your XPath looks like.
Sometimes it's like really long too.
Okay.
Body /div
Yeah.
to
Gotcha.
div.
Well, so I found it literally by the actual, it gives you an actual path. If it goes all the way from the HTML to top, that's an actual path.
Gotcha.
And he said that was,
This is absolute path, right?
yeah, absolute path.
Gotcha.
He said that was gonna be hard to work with. And he said, why don't you try relative? And I go, I don't know what you mean relative.
Use your relative path. The relative path is so much easier.
So you have to find something on the page that you can trigger from to
Yeah.
get relative path.
And then navigate.
Okay, so now that you guys finished challenge 3, let's go over challenge 4 really quick. And then we're gonna finish up by showing you guys how to do a code.
What, go check it.
Yep, code checking. So challenge 4, we are going to write the Fibonacci sequence.
I don't even know what that is.
The Fibonacci sequence. What is Fibonacci sequence?
That's like isn't that the golden ratio? The spiral?
Yes.
The thing that appears all through nature and that's probably the key to all of our existence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like I know that like the back of my
But the
hand.
That's what we're all made of, so.
the numeric
There's
value
my-
of the Fibonacci sequence. This is the spiral you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the Fibonacci sequence in numeric value is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. How's this significant?
Not at all.
What it starts with, it starts with 0, and then 1. This next value is,
The addition of the two.
Addition of the two, yeah.
so that's your pattern.
Okay.
So the first challenge is for you to figure out the math problem to add up, to come up with a formula that returns.
Yeah, okay. That's how it works.
So it's got to return this list. If I go to if I say, what is the 5th order of these Fibonacci sequence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it should return me 0, 1, 1, 2, 3 in my list. If I want to go to the 10th, it's going to go 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, 377. I think it goes to 610. So that's the first challenge, is to add up the numeric math. You can use a while loop, you can use a for loop to figure out how you want to go through this. You can use an if statement. It's up to you. Okay, second part of this challenge. If you look at some of the code that we wrote right here, this is great, but guess what? Nobody can use this awesome function to find all the URLs of this section on this page outside of what we're doing. Nobody can do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our own function. So let me show you how do you write your own function? So here's my challenge 4. My challenge 4, and we're not going to be using any of these libraries, so if you'd want to comment it out, you can. If you don't want to comment it out, it's up to you. But I did comment out the steps to open up a web browser. And I did comment out the driver.quit, because I don't need that. I don't need teardown. So really, this is your Fibonacci function. And all I'm doing is doing console.log and punch that out. So notice right here, I can call the same function over and over again. As many times as I want to. I can break it up in different ways.
So where's that function?
This function is right here.
So you create a new JS file for the function. Okay,
Right.
all right.
Okay, so this one here, remember, I'm gonna hide this, unhide the code, sorry.
Go ahead, hide the code.
You guys can probably go to Google and do a Fibonacci sequence and give you plenty of coding examples to write it. But this is the key that's important, is if you want to write a function that is public to another file that can utilize it, when you create a JS file, you have to use a modules export.
Okay.
Modules.export equals open and close bracket or brace. And then you have to give the function, this one, the first one value here is what it's going to be exposed as. So what is everybody else going to know you as?
Okay.
And this is your function within or the method within your function.
Okay.
We don't have classes here, so I guess I can't call it class, but that's how
It's
you.
kind of a class.
Okay.
It's a really loose count. You don't have to put a semicolon at the end? Okay.
Now, what happens if I do function awesome, and we're going to open and close it. What happens to this function in here?
It can't be used outside of this area.
Correct. Nobody else can use it, so this becomes a private function. And I'll show you the convert to string if you guys are quick.
Yeah, you're not that fast.
If you pause the video in the future, you can copy some of the code, but it won't be all of it. Okay, so notice in this one right here, I'm doing a convert num to string. So once you figure out your Fibonacci sequence, so whether it's 0, 1, 2, whatever number it is, I want you guys to print that out into a string value, kind of like what you do in a check. So if you write 501, I want you to print out 501. If it's 510, I want you to put 5. If it's 510, it needs to print out 510. So that's the challenge. That part is difficult. It's a lot more difficult than the first one. So this one here would actually take you quite a bit of time to figure out. There are a couple of ways you can solve this. You can use math. You can use string parsing. So let's say we have a number. If you want to write a function that's reusable, the beautiful thing about our language is everything is broken up into hundreds and tens. After that, it's just a value that you're adding. So 1,100, or 10,100, or 100,000. So there's a pattern there. So figure out that pattern. So it could be 100, could be 100. But the nice thing is if you break it up into 3 values, that's what you're going to be figuring out the numbers with. So that's a tip. What does it look like after I'm done? Oh, I forgot. Let's show you how to import. Let's look through the challenge 4. So to import your JavaScript file, you're going to do const Fibonacci, so whatever function you want to give it inside this test. You're going to do require, and you're going to do a / and the file name without a JS.
I do not. Glad this is being recorded.
The reason it doesn't have JS is because we're already working in JavaScript files and it's not necessary.
So those are pretty much the key to what you're going to be doing to solve this problem. And I'm going to leave it at that. you guys are gonna figure out your algorithm and how you're gonna create a new project. Hopefully you guys can get it done in your homework.
By next week.
Yes, by next week. So what does it look like? Mocha challenge 4.js. Very simple. 0 equals 0, 1 equals 1, 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, 3 equals 3. Okay, but remember, if you want to cheat, you can. But if you want to print out the 50th order of the Fibonacci sequence, I guarantee you, you will not be able to write enough code to figure that out because it's going to be fairly dynamic. There you go. 7,778,742,049.
Big spiral.
Good luck.
Take that home, Mom.
That's right. So use the strategy you guys did with the console.logs. Use your strategies with the if-else statements and the while loops, and write your function. The other key to remember to write a function. So this is right here, your challenge4.js. This is your test function. This is your Mocha. So that's why you can do a describe right here. For all other functions, you have to start with function. Function and then function name.
Sorry, why again? Is that just a JavaScript thing?
No, it's a Mocha thing.
It's a Mocha thing. Okay.
Mochas understand to describe and it function.
Okay.
Outside of that, in JavaScript, there has to be function Fibonacci. Because this is not our test here. This is becoming a library for us.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge 4, if this is a test script, then it has to describe.
Okay, and that's all functions in Mocha have to start with function?
If you want to write a library, you have to start with function.
Gotcha. Oh, I see, but with tests, with tests we can do different stuff. Gotcha.
And then if you want to pass a value into your function, just throw it in here. Nice thing with JavaScript, you just throw a variable and then you can utilize a variable. In Java, if this was you'd have to know what this is. So if this is a string, you'll type string. If it's an int, you have to type in an int. JavaScript, heck of a lot easier. Don't need to worry about that. The other thing that you might want to look up is to do a dot substring. So if you do a dot substring, this is a great function to use. I think I included it in the tutorial, but this substring is it's one strategy for you to pull the 3 values for each within the commas. So if you have 1 million, you know it's 1, 3 zeros, and then 3 zeros. So you can pull that out into 3 different substrings. I'll let you guys mull it over and you guys can write your challenge. It'll be fun. Like I said, one of the guy who got his code down to running 8 milliseconds consistently, he spent, I think, a whole entire week writing it, about 2 or 3 hours a day. I've done this so many times, but I am still spending about 8 hours because I forgot mine wouldn't print out. It would print out everything else, but this 10 it wouldn't print out, and 13 wouldn't print out. I'm not printing 13, but it's one of these right here. So make sure you test all your different variations. Well, then you ask, well, why am I doing all this console.log? In the future, when we get to working with APIs, we're going to pass a bunch of variables into an API or into our network request, and we're going to get a bunch of data back. So we're going to write one function that tests multiple values and multiple things that we're going to pass to the service, and it's going to return us a value. So this way, you have to be able to say, well, I want test 1, I want test 5. What happens if I change this to 150. My code gonna break, or am I handling it? Oh. It actually broke.
Oh, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, because it didn't keep printing the words.
Yep. Because I forgot to add a error handling class. What happens if it exceeds a certain value of strings?
Limitation of characters.
There's a limitation, and I think it actually works with 70. No, 100. No. So like I said, it's still breaking. But even if this is why I don't test my own code, and this is why we have QA to test each other's code.
No, if you check that in there, you testing it first, I'll be pretty mad.
Yeah, but this is how you run your own test that you verified. Like I said, if I checked it in on my first variation, I would have, and I didn't test the 610 number, I would have missed a test case.
Bug.
Awesome. Now you guys know what it feels like to be a developer. All right, now let's go to GitHub. So I only put in the instructions for GitHub. You can use Bitbucket if you want to. It's up to you.
This seems really clear, your GitHub start guide that you linked up.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Just nudge.
Okay, so for those of you guys who hate reading, like myself, hopefully that, I'll show you the link. You guys are going to the top of this document. I put this link right here. There's probably a lot of spelling errors in it and grammar mistakes. I did a quick proofread. And hopefully it makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that was even there.
Yeah. So first step, go to GitHub, create your account. So once you create your account, you'll log in. It'll look like this. Okay. Second step is to generate your, look at that mistake right there. Terminal. Look at actually quite a few people on here misspelled terminal. Okay, so what you need to do once you create your account, you'll need to go download the Git client.
Right.
On Windows. And on a Mac. And on Linux. Just go download it. You download it, install it, and then you're going to open up your Git bash. And I think on a Mac, you can just go to your terminal, and it'll have all your Linux functions there. It's actually
Git bash. Okay, open my Git bash.
And then you're inside your terminal, you're going to generate your SSH key. So this is a private and a public key that you're going to be used to identify your account with. So there's no username and password. That's why I don't remember my username and password to get into GitHub, because I have a public and private key. I can paste that public key into anywhere I want to. If you already have a public and a private key that you generated from your work, from where you're working at now, you can use that public and private key if you want to. Yes.
So if we have a GitHub account, and we have content on there, but we have been using like user-friendly interfaces, not the terminal, etc. Would I need to download Git bash so that I can use it through the terminal, or does that already come when you install?
You can do two different ways. So if you want to, so what Renee is asking is if you have the Git client, so let's say I have the Git client, and I do have the Tortoise Git.
Mm-hmm.
This thing will set up to do the exact same thing you can do. Pull, fetch, push. You can do commits in here, but it's not as cool when you use a GUI. It's so much cooler if you're using command line. Yeah, it's just not so cool. And you want to you got to get respect from your developers. So
What if they're using source tree?
well,
There,
yeah, you'll
see?
lose your respect. they're using subversion of source tree.
No.
They're like, you guys are old school. When are you gonna retire? Yeah. So you're gonna generate your SSH key. Once you generate your SSH key, on Windows, it tells you the path. So if you go to step 6, it'll tell you the path where it's at. On a Windows machine, it's typically under your C drive, and there will be a users. Inside your users folder, there will be a .ssh folder. So look for that .ssh. So it's going to be in here, and this is where it contains the public and private keys. Do not ever share your private key.
That's
Only
the whole
share your
point of
public
being
key.
private.
Yeah. Your private key is only known to you and is only identifiable to you. If somebody else has your private key, they can do whatever they want to and get access into your public repos. But we really don't have too much to hide, so I'm not too worried about it. Remember that.
So
Once you,
what if you set up your GitHub account without a private key at all, and I'm just using passwords?
you can continue to use your password,
Okay.
but I forget my password. I have way too many passwords. I can't even log in to pay my bills on a monthly basis.
Pass.
Yes. So that's exactly, but that's the nice thing about Git is that I don't have to remember.
That's true, yeah. You do
And
that.
it does add a huge layer of security that I don't never have to worry about.
Can you switch your account to use the key afterwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So if you want to switch to using the SSH key, just go through this instruction.
Okay.
Once you generate your key, you're going to open this pub, .pub, remember that's a public key. It's going to come up with something like that. You're going to take the whole entire content, copy it, and go to GitHub, and go to your settings, go to your SSH PGP keys, and my keys are in here. That's a key that I use.
Wait, you're showing us your keys?
That's a public key. I can share my public key all I want. You can share my public key into every one of your repos. I don't care, because with my private key, I can go into every one of your repos.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, so that's what I said. Doesn't matter. And I forgot what my other key was. I also have two keys here. I'm like, what is this one? I don't remember picking this one. I don't even know where that key is right now. But I just kept it here.
All these keys.
Yeah. Luckily, GitHub tells me which one I used in the last week, so I can delete this one for one. Yeah. So I can create a new, enter your key. You can say, my awesome key. Take that whole entire, all the text. Yeah. Paste it in there. Do not forget one character. If you forget one character, it will not work for you. Yes. This is, I think this one is, what did I put on here? I think it's 4,900 or 4,096 bit encrypted. Go grab the whole entire farm of video cards and try to decrypt that. It'll probably take you 1,000 lifetimes to decrypt that. Yeah.
There he goes. Back to the view.
So once you add that key, add mine, and click on this little profile icon right here. And here you can say new repo. Give it a name of awesomeness. You can make it a public repo, or you can make it a private repo. In the past, you'd actually pay for your private repo, but now they changed it so that it's private. See?
Oh my gosh.
But if you want somebody to help you with your code, you're going to have to make it public, or you're going to have to share a key. Private key? Like I said, you can choose what you want. Create the repo. We'll just create a public repo, and
I would say like call it something like JS-Autobots or something like that.
Yeah.
You're gonna make a ton of these, so simplify it.
yeah.
That was where I had a question.
I call mine Autobots.
You have like 20 that are called awesomeness with like multiple different, like 3 S's on one of them. One is a capital A.
So here's the cool thing. If you say initialize this repository with the README, great. Awesomeness. And it's going to give you, where's my README?
Your README is right there. You just need to edit now.
Okay. There's my awesomeness. Now, that's actually not what I wanted. Because that didn't give you hardly anything. Let's go back to create another repo.
That's pretty much all it creates ever.
Yeah, but watch this. If you do JS public and I don't initialize with that, create repo, voila, it gives you all the
Yeah, I
instructions.
did that, yeah.
So this is the instructions that that you want. Okay. And this is the line that you want to copy or this path. Copy that. Throw on the notepad. And you can verify your SSH keys is valid. You can do an SSH -GitHub. Make sure that's all good. The instructions are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, now we're creating a new repo. There's your repo name. Make sure you copy that path. Open a terminal. This is where you get cool. This is where you get like get factor out of whereas with your developers. So here's my terminal. Clear that. I can go up. And what I did is I actually checked in this whole entire everything inside Code Challenge 2018, 2019. I started writing this 2018 folder. Do a dir right here. You have all your folders and files. And I notice in here I don't have I think I did initialize right here. But notice there is there a git? I thought I had one. Should be git ignore.
Yeah, you put it inside the
Yeah.
challenge 3.
Yeah. So if you want to put a git ignore in at the root of here, you can. Don't have to. I put my git ignores into every one of these so I can control which files I want to upload for each repo. So when you're right here, you want to do a git init. This initializes this folder here as what you're going to be checking in. And that's in, where's that instruction? So here's your git init. And we kind of talked about the git ignore right here. You want to create your git ignore. You want to ignore the node modules. You don't get all your drive space in GitHub. And if there's a .git file, a .git file just indicates Git that that's what the file uses to track all your changes. Okay. So you want to have Git ignore the node modules folder and the Git file. Then you're going to do a git.add or git add dot. So once you do the git init, now you're going to do a git add dot. And since I already checked in my repo, it's going to add all my changes I've just barely done tonight and add it to a set of files it's going to keep track of and what it's going to try to check in. What's the next step? We're going to do our first commit. So you can do a git commit. Do git commit -m. Give it some description.
First
The bunch of those are all the files that was changed. It's going to push it up into GitHub. But notice one thing right here is it actually kept track of the package -log.json. We actually don't need that. So if you want to go back to your git ignored, you can just do a package -lock.json. That's just a generated file. So anything that's generated, you really don't need to check. Now the next step is going to be a little different. But right here, remember that that line that I had you guys copy. Right here. So if you go back to your repo and your instructions, here's your, we're just going through this. You don't need to do this because it's just saying add one file. If you do a dot, it'll add everything inside all those folders. If you do a get add specific file, challenge3.js, it's only going to add the one file to your commit. And then you can add it to your commit. Yes?
So with the option to add a README and a message, if you don't add one, that you could, and you could let people know what your project is about. With all of that, is it common practice for people to add READMEs to their code, or is it something that people skip?
If you ever want to help people, which all of us want to help people, right? Look at all those examples you have when you go to Google and search for something. You can say, search for buy is undefined. I couldn't figure it out. Actually, a lot of tutorials or some of the READMEs and help guide is on GitHub. It's because somebody checked in the README. And so if you want to help with your code challenges and things that cool stuff that you did, or a cool function that you wrote, you need to tell them what it is, share it with the community.
So then would it be clearer and easier for people to understand what you're doing if you write a README in GitHub versus commenting your code as you're writing?
I think it serves two different purposes, right? Like the README, there's no way for you to document everything your code is doing in a README file. It'd just be too huge. So READMEs for like what we'd be doing would be for like, for example, if I wanted to share my code with Andy, then my README would just be a really easy way for him to, here's the instructions for how you build my stuff, how you load dependencies, and then get running. And I'm using Mocha, so run tests with Mocha, this, right? And it'd be like very simple, almost like get started with my stuff. If I want to go more in depth, then I'll probably create a wiki within that repo and really go to town with documentation there. But my README would be very much like get started with my code by doing this kind of thing.
Right, okay. Thank you.
So the first time that you check in your repo or your first project, make sure you copy this line of code right here and you paste it. You have to do a get remote at origin. It has to know where your file is going to be located at. Okay, I won't hit enter here because I already have it set to my other folder. But once you add this, it'll say origin is added. If this is not the origin you want to add, or if you added that fingered, you can do it remove as well. So once you add that origin, the last step on your first code push is you have to do, I didn't realize you can do a push U, but I do get push to U. Oops. So you do that, or you can do a, what did I document? I think I documented the get upstream master.
I just have to give push right where it tells me.
So this. Now you have set your repo in GitHub as a master. And so now you just have a copy of the master. Then you can make your changes. Once you're ready to check it in. If you want to branch off the master, you can create a feature branch. Do what you need to. So now what happens is, what if after all those things, what if after you checked in your file, you just want to commit more files? You do a get, remember get add.
Yeah, get commit.
Dash M, more changes,
Then you just do a push, right?
get push.
Is the add with the period the same as a -A?
So what?
Is the add with the period the same as a -A? An add all?
Possibly. I just do a get dot.
Okay, thanks.
It's just
Like from God, when that voice came over.
nice thing with the get. Like I said, I'm lazy, so if I don't have to type a character, I don't have to type a character. That's why whenever if somebody wants me to whiteboard code, I will suck at it because everybody uses a code complete. I don't remember how to write exactly the code. I don't know how to declare an array list and which one's a camel case and which one's not. On a computer, I can do it easily, but whiteboarding, it's like, oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I use shortcuts for Git command.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how you get your code up into GitHub. And now you guys have challenge 4 ready. It's gonna be fun. You guys finished challenge 3. If you guys want to take that challenge 3 and play around with it on other sites, try MSN.com. MSN, the site is a mess, but there's a lot of data you can verify in there. Amazon, go spam Amazon with some automation. Their stuff's great. Yeah. Google Images. If you want to start learning how to scrape images off Google, go for it. Or if there's a favorite car site that you go to and you're like, dude, I want all these new cars, these images, go scrape it. We'll teach you later on how to create a Jenkins job that you can kick off once an hour, once a day on Trigger, and go scrape anything that you want to. So you don't have to use automation just to go from page 1 to page 10. You can gather data. You can do a lot of damage with it. And if you came to the artillery tutorial with Node and artillery, you can basically do a denial service attack. And if you have set up with AWS and multi-region, you can do a distributed denial service attack. So,
That's why we come to these.
that's right.
How to bring down websites by Matt King.
Yeah, how do you bring down a website?
So if we push up our code, should we let you know what our key is or who we are so you can check it at this point, or?
Nope, make it a public repo.
Public repo, yeah, but, and then do we let you know somehow at this point?
Yep, email me your repo if you get stuck on it. Then I can pull down your code. I can see exactly what you're doing wrong, because sometimes it might not be your code. You're like, it doesn't work. I can't, when I do a Mocha challenge, it doesn't do anything. Then I'm gonna say, well, first of all, you probably didn't do npm install. And the reason why I know that is because you don't have the git ignore file. That is ignoring all your node_modules folder. You're like, oh shoot. Different ways for me to help you troubleshoot. Or just over Slack, help Angel with over Slack.
I got another Git question. I feel stupid asking it because I've done it so many times, but I keep stumbling on it. Pulling, like when I need to pull something, do I start with a git init to say like, this is where I'm pulling it to? Or do I just more like cd into the directory that I want to pull from?
You need to figure out where your path is going to be.
Uh-huh.
So then you just do a git pull.
Okay,
You don't have to do a fetch first.
Yeah, you have to do fetch, sorry.
fetch, okay, cool.
That sort of UIs come in handy for noobs to get.
Yes.
So I would go into like, if I wanted to pull the Amazon Harry Potter thing, then I would like, you know, I get the URL for that, right? So that's the fetch, right? I fetch this from this URL. Yeah, and then I do a pull into the file that I've CD'd into. Cool. All right, it's simple, but yeah.
There's a lot more other features.
Yeah, I would say like make a repo like this is a perfect way to start, and then it's like when you're learning Linux for the first time, you're blowing everything up all constantly, and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and then you might make like 5 repos before you get it right. So
You guys want to try an awesome Linux command, log in as super user, so SU, and then go to C / go to your root and do a rm dash
No way.
capital F
I'm not gonna do that.
space /.
Nope, don't do
Do
it.
it. Yeah.
It's a great command.
It's an awesome command. Just try it out. You can try it on your Mac, but I think Mac protects you pretty well. But it will lead you to
it's implying danger away.
How about you do it on your computer? Let's see.
It turns on the screen.
mine's
Capital F.
Capital- Yeah, Windows doesn't have Linux, so you can't do that on a Windows machine.
I think you can do it in PowerShell.
You can do a PowerShell command that's similar, but not that exactly.
So basically, this command is going to delete every file.
In your
You'll
machine.
force delete everything from the root all the way down.
So you'll have no working OS.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, so if somebody tells you do that rm dash The capital R means recursive, that capital F means forced, the slash. Just, no warning, just,
It doesn't even, boom, done. On, computer dead.
okay, that's it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt.